Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time and those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. We like to move quickly through these calls and bottom line the information for you. Our standard format is to spend a few minutes talking about the situation in Iraq with the reinstitution of their currency, as we continue to believe that the Iraqi dinar is the base currency for the potential reset of some of these other currencies. A few minutes talking about the turnkey program we've put in place to assist you, and then we go to a brief Q&A. For the last several months, we've been dispensing with our routine call and just devoting these shorter calls to the situation going on in Iraq, largely because we are on a week-to-week basis suspending marketing of our trust simply because of the workload that we've been having to deal with. We are not a large firm, although we're very experienced in this area, and we have to make sure and properly service everyone that contacts us, whether it's someone that's interested in establishing a trust or someone that has service work necessary with an existing trust. That's going to be the case today, although I think we're over the hump and we have finally got the workload under control. So we will have a shorter call today. And next week, at present, there will not be a call, only because Wednesday, August 11th, happens to be my birthday. So unless something of a very dramatic nature happens that simply requires that we have a conference call, there will not be one next week. So if you contact us next week and you get nothing but airtime, there will be no call. But again, if something of a dramatic nature should pop up, which is a possibility, and I'll get into that in just a few minutes, then I'm going to have to move some things around and make sure that I can get on a call, even if it's a shorter call. So let's get started and talk a little bit about the information I have for today. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale of these or purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we share with you the information that we think is relevant. Now, we have been for the last few weeks in a window that began on July 1st through August 15th for the window for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. That window still exists, although as we get close to the end of a window, the probability, for obvious reasons, lessens. So I'm not as bullish on the reinstitution on or before August 15th. Again, that is a possibility, but I want to get into the rationale for where we are right now. First, I want to talk just briefly about what's going on the global scene. We see that the fines and penalties are being assessed to some of the bad players, central banks, and other individuals. We see that there have been some arrests for malfeasance, for fraud, embezzlement, things of that nature. We also see that they're stepping up the central banks with liquidity to the banks. And whenever you see an increase in liquidity, that means that there are transactions that they're anticipating. Now, we have what I want to refer to as a global conundrum right now. On the one hand, we have the international agencies that are all pushing for a one world digital currency. But at the same time, we have the currencies having to be Basel III compliant. Now, if a currency is Basel III compliant, that limits the amount of currency that can be printed because it has to be backed with something of substance, not necessarily gold or precious or industrial metal, but a series of commodities. So from our standpoint, once the reinstitution of the dinar and hopefully some of these other currencies happen, I suspect that very quickly they're going to try to move to a one-world digital currency. So we're going to have a window, and at this point we don't know what size that window is going to be. We're going to have a window from the day of the exchange to the announcement of some sort of a one world digital currency to move a substantial amount of that money into tangible assets and out of the control of the global, national, international banking system. We also hear rumors that the United States dollar is going to be removed from the IMF basket of currencies because they're becoming increasingly more pro-China. And, of course, it's not a coincidence that this occurs when the Trump administration's out and the Biden administration, which is clearly a laydown for China, at least for the time being, is in. So these are all issues that we're going to deal with immediately after the reinstitution and currency exchange. But there is some good news with regard to Iraq. We know that the Iraq's officials have been negotiating with a number of agencies, the World Trade Organization, the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, and we're being told that Iraq is moving quickly to full membership with the World Trade Organization. As a matter of fact, the Trade Organization and the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development has announced that they expect Iraq to be fully a member of the World Trade Organization before the end of the year. Now, I don't see how that's possible without a reinstated currency for a number of reasons, and I'll get into that in a moment. We also have Prime Minister Kazemi announcing full implementation of the White Paper reforms, along with all of the requisite administrative and executive mechanisms required for that. Now, there are a couple of major objectives that these reforms will touch on. They talk about economic reform and correcting structural imbalances. This is kind of doublespeak for a very simple situation. The transition to a free market private enterprise type of an economy. We also know that at present approximately 90% of the revenues that the Iraqi government generates is through the sale of petroleum. And they need and want to diversify their source of revenue, which is trade and tourism. Again, this cannot be accomplished without the reinstitution of their currency. So for all of these reasons, even though we may not hit the August 15th day, and I've explained why that's an important date, we still are going to see the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar in order for Iraq to be part of the World Trade Organization and to also be involved in these negotiations with the United Nations Conference for Trade and Development. So we're moving in the right direction. I did a little other homework, and I decided to go back and look at the dates of the reinstitution of currencies going all the way back to the reinstitution of the German Deutschmark after World War I. And all of the reinstitutions occurred in 3 months, either January, April, or September. Now, I've mentioned this in the past, and I also said that we're in a very different situation today, and the situation with the Iraqi dinar is timely because at the very same time that this single nation state is in the position to reinstitute their currency, we're also seeing major shifts globally, one with, of course, moving to Basel III compliance. But again, and it seems contradictory to me that we're looking at this great reset, which is going to require substantial additional liquidity for all of the central banks. And, of course, if they get their way, the creation of universal income. And unfortunately, along with that will go a credit system having to do with compliance with the arbitrary rules being established by unelected officials. So, again, that leaves us a window after the reinstitution and exchange of our currency to move that money as quickly as we can to other areas where we would have more control. Precious metals, industrial metals, even cryptocurrencies, real estate investment trusts, other forms of contracts, things that we can do to get the money out of the control of the central bank system. So in conclusion, let me just state that, again, while August 15th may not be, on or before August 15th, may not be accomplished for the reinstitution of the dinar, once again, the trajectory of everything points to the reinstitution this year, and the only obstacles to the reinstitution of the dinar and hopefully the other currencies is the dwindling number of people that for their own selfish and ideological reasons just don't want to see this happen. So thanks for listening to this call. Again, I do not expect there will be a call next week, although if something of a dramatic nature happens between now and then, which is a possibility, I will make whatever arrangements I need to get on the horn and discuss with you the issues that are relevant. I've spoken with our attorneys, and their view is that within 2 weeks, if we don't have a call next week, we will have caught up with all of the work we need to do for our existing clients, for individuals that are applying for trust for the first time. And so they want me to resume with our normal calls. That is the plan. And so I just wanted to make you aware of that. Again, thanks so much for listening to the call. And we will certainly be back in 2 weeks. And depending upon what happens over the next week, we may be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. So have a great